Hey, thank y'all for coming tonight. Get to hear about. No, you're fine. Get to hear about our Vancouver trip. Matt was unable to come since it's the tail end of spring break, so he decided that he wanted to go visit some family before he got back in the swing of school. And also, me and Michael will share with you guys tonight about our trip. And so I'm looking forward to that. God did some really cool things in a very dark place there. So. But just a couple of announcements. Don't forget to be praying for the upcoming revival. I know it's difficult sometimes to schedule a revival, but if we ask the Lord to move, He's going to move. So God is in the business of hearing His people and listening. So be in prayer for the revival. Be thinking about who you can invite to the revival, but also who you can be sharing with. I think last time I spoke, I challenged you guys to focus on 2 people this next year to pray for, to share with, and to even fast over, to disciple so that they can become believers. And so I hope that you're doing that. I hope you haven't forgotten about that. And I pray that you continue to do that and find the strength in the Lord to do that. So, but let's stand right now. Greet someone you haven't seen tonight and say hello.
please remain standing for our offertory prayer. Amen. Ned said something a few minutes ago about praying for the revival, and we all have an opportunity to go to different homes every week before the revival. On Thursday nights, we're having prayer services, and I think the Carneys is this week. So if you don't know where he lives, ask him. And you can make it to his house this Thursday evening at 6:30 this Thursday evening at their house this week. So don't forget about that. All right, we're going to sing a song for the nations. May we be a shining light to the nations, and then we'll stand up and sing, So Send I You.
Shining
Terry's going to sing a song he wrote tonight. I think it might have been done one time in this church before I came, which was 4 years ago. And so you pray for him. He comes and sings. Pray for the preacher this week. He's not doing well. That's why you don't see him tonight. He's trying to get better. So put him on top of your prayer list so he can get better.
How are y'all doing? Doing pretty good? I wrote the song 10 years ago, give or take. It was 7th grade, I remember that much. We went to youth camp at Louisiana Tech. And I wrote some words, and Kim was the youth minister at the time, and I gave him the words, and I said, could you put some music to these for me? And he did, and we've done this song a couple of times way back in the day, but I've never done it myself here, so this is a first. I hope y'all like it. Well, no, I'm not worthy of your love, your kindness, your watch care from above. 'Cause I'm not worthy. I know I'm not worthy of your son, to be your child, to be your own. 'Cause I'm not worthy, yet you love me anyway, and you wash my sins away. But no, I'm not worthy of your glory, your grace, but you love me anyway. No, I'm not worthy of your love, when short of your glory, Lord. 'Cause I'm not worthy. You opened my eyes so I could see your love and your power, they set me free. 'Cause you're worthy, yet you love me anyway, and you wash my sins away. So I'm not worthy of your glory or grace, but you love me anyway. You love me regardless of who I am. You love me regardless of what I do. In spite of my sinful ways, you offer me all your grace. And yet you love me anyway, and you wash my sins away. No, I'm not worthy of your glory or grace, but you love me anyway. Love me anyway. Love me anyway. Love me anyway.
Give us just a second, all right? That's good.
Red. Hey.
Yeah, that's good?
Yeah.
All right, good deal. So, all right. Thank you, Terry, man. Isn't that, golly, that's a good song. I like that, Terry.
I remember doing that in praise band. I really liked it. Haven't heard it since then, but it's really good.
Yeah, that was, I mean, isn't it wonderful that we worship a God who knows what we've done, knows what we do, and knows what we're going to do, and yet He still says, I want you to be in my family. I still want you. I know who you are, but I still want you. Man, that's good, Terry. That really is. It really is. All right, so this is how tonight's going to kind of go. I'm going to give you a breakdown of the week, just kind of what we've done, and me and Michael here. And then we're going to kind of open it up to some questions at the end. If you'd like to ask a certain question, maybe that you've been thinking about, or that you kind of think about during our little presentation, that's fine. And we're also just going to kind of touch on the highlights of our week, what God kind of spoke through us to individually. And Matt's not here tonight, like I said earlier, but I'll also talk just kind of what he's kind of given me to tell you through him. So first up, we got there late Friday night. We flew into Seattle, and then we rented some vans that took forever. And then we drove up to Vancouver, about a 4-hour trip. And I'm going to tell you right now that last year I went and I was all gung-ho. I was like, cool, Vancouver, it's like half Chinese, that's great. I'm really excited about this year. I was not excited. I'm going to tell you right now that I was very much not wanting to go on this trip. Those of you that don't know, I have a little girl now, and I did not want to leave her. And so it was tugging at me hard, especially my wife as well. And so it was just a difficult time for us to leave, you know? Yeah. So it was a difficult time for me to leave, but man, the Lord really showed me that I needed to be on that trip, and it was probably one of the best mission trips I've been on. I've been on quite a few. So just real quick, one of the reasons that probably the first day, and I say this right now, when God kind of showed me straight up, like, just this is why you're on the trip in such a wonderful way. The first day we were just kind of relaxing. We got in late that night, so we kind of slept in that morning a little bit, and then that evening, Garrett, the pastor of Towers Baptist Church, where we were staying at, it's one of the only Baptist churches in British Columbia, and I think it was the first in Vancouver, if I'm not. It's actually in Richmond, which is a sub-city of Vancouver, a suburb. I think that's what they call them, a suburb of Vancouver, and Number 5 Road that used to be I think he said a berry farm or something like that. There used to be berry farms or whatever. But now, since 1995 or 1997, I can't remember, when Hong Kong went back to the mainland China, a huge flux of Chinese just came into Richmond here. And then along with the Chinese came Sikhs, came Muslims, came all walks of life. Over half the city of Vancouver now is foreign born. So just imagine, just almost overnight, just you're in like a small town, just kind of changed into this place of variety like no other. And so, Number 5 Road, there's a mosque, there's a Buddhist temple, there's a Sikh temple, a Jewish school, and a Christian church. So, all on this road. They call it the highway to heaven.
Only thing that separates those things is like bushes, like the bushes around our church. It's just like right there. There's a Sikh temple, and then there's a Buddhist temple, then there's a mosque, and it's nothing like you would see here. You would never see that here.
Right, and they pride themselves on coexisting, on just getting along. So that's what we kind of face. So, and it's very similar to right there. So the university right there that both Michael goes to and where I graduated from, very similar mindset. You know, that what's good for you is good for you, what's good for me is good for me, and we'll just leave it at that, okay? Don't try to talk to me about religion. But I'll just tell the first day, and then I'll let you speak a little bit, Michael, if you want. But the first day we got there, like I said, we just kind of rested a little bit. Then we went to Garrett, the pastor at Towers, said, I want you to go to these spots around the city just so you can get a feel of the city. It's fairly easy to get around the city. It's a very clean city. And we took a SkyTrain, like a subway, and we went to various spots. And the first spot we had to go to kind of one of the hubs of the SkyTrain, and he said, just ask somebody, find anybody, and say, what do you think of Jesus, okay? Now, to give you a background, I had to turn in a midterm early this week so that I could go on this trip. And it was for a missions class, and one of my essays was I had to pick a worldview, and I had to write an essay on how I would present the gospel to this specific worldview. And so I chose Hindu-Buddhistic worldview, so how I would share the gospel basically with a Hindu or a Buddhist. Don't think I'd ever use that, right? And so I was like, there's not a lot of Hindus or Buddhists in this town, right? Maybe a few, but very, very few, right? And so I get off the SkyTrain, and I'm honest, I had drank a lot of water, and I had to find a restroom quick, okay? I was like, man, I don't have time to talk to somebody right now. I got to find a restroom. So I went across the street to what I thought was a bank. And I said, okay, maybe they won't think I'm robbing this place. And I went up in this bank, and there was a Chinese guy and an Indian guy, right? And they're in this bank. And I said, man, do y'all have a restroom? They said, yeah, sure, right here, just go right here. And so I went to the restroom. I come out, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, there's no tellers. This isn't a bank. And I talked to these guys, and I'm like, what is this place, you know? And they say, oh, this is a Hindu Buddhist temple, a Hindu Buddhist center. And I was like, great, I have a wonderful question to ask you, right? And so right off the bat, God was saying, hey, Nick, I want you to be here, right? I want you to be here for a reason to share. And we had a wonderful opportunity. I don't know if you were there. Were you there at that place?
I wasn't in there, but we were outside, and I got to talk to people outside by the subways too. And it was amazing. You know, you ask that question, and you think, it may be awkward. It's like the first thing you walk up to somebody, it's like, hey, what do you think of Jesus? And you think people will be like, oh, well, I'll back off. But no, people were very, very bold to tell us what they thought, and it really kind of sparked up some interesting conversations. We met one guy just, in a random situation. He's a youth minister in East Vancouver. There's not many of those obviously, a Christian youth minister in East Vancouver with a Baptist church. You don't see that, and so that was pretty neat. And we had one guy that was just like indifferent, and that's all he had to say about that. And so that's kind of we're dealing with a diverse area of people, but it was funny because we saw them go over there, and they said they were going to the bank, and we didn't think much of it. We didn't even look at what it said on the front and everything. And then after about 15 minutes, they had been over there a while, and we were like, where'd they go? What's taking them so long? Well, it turns out that they walked into this place, and we saw that it said some kind of humanism, Buddhist joint thing, and it was a big building, and we were like, oh, I see what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And I knew that they had to be talking to them, so that was interesting. So if you want to continue.
Yeah, and so the next day we went, this was Sunday, we actually had an opportunity to help do what now? What was his answer to what he thought of Jesus? Both of them pretty much said that he was a great moral teacher. And so that was kind of a common saying that we got was he was a good man, a great moral teacher, but he's no God to me, right? So that's what we heard most of the time. And for those of you that don't know, a Hindu or a Buddhist, their struggle, their problem isn't sin, at least in their worldview. Their problem is suffering. And they think that they can get out of suffering, that they can get out of this life if they separate themselves from everything, from suffering, from pleasure, from all sorts of things. And they reach this kind of enlightened state called, maybe y'all have heard of nirvana. They reach what they call nirvana, or Brahman is in the Hindu language. And once they've reached that enlightened state, they're good. They're good. And basically they go through these life cycles, this transmigration of the soul is what it's called, or reincarnation. And every time they die, they will come back as either something better based on their works or something worse. That's why if you go to a Hindu country like India, you'll notice that there'll be cows walking through the street. They don't want to kill cows because cows may be a grandfather that they had or something like that. You could come back as a cow or something real completely different than when we grew up, right? So, but first you have to tell them that there's a problem of sin, and then we can start talking about Jesus. And so it was difficult. It was difficult, but I did get to share. We got to share with these guys, these two guys. We got to lay out the gospel to them, and so at least they have heard. They've heard, and now they are, they can think on it, and the Spirit can move in ways. And so, anyway, so the next day we go to Vancouver Island, to Victoria, which is actually the capital of British Columbia, to help move in a guy named Ashley Austin. Have any of y'all ever heard of him, Ashley Austin? He did. That's right. That's right. You were there. Okay. Yeah. So Ashley Austin, he went there, and he's been just various positions at First Baptist Church Biloxi. And so him and his wife, his whole family, have now moved to Victoria, Vancouver Island, which is one of the centers of the occult in Canada. And so this one little island, well, it's actually a pretty big island, but this island is, I think it's like the second largest population of the occult or something like that. It's something crazy, but Garrett warned us that you can literally feel a dark presence on that island as we walked in. And so very big center of ancestor worship, of just the occult and just darkness, And so, and if you know anything about the climate up there, it's just wet all the time. It's wet and muggy and
gray.
Yeah.
It's just that's kind of when I was over there, that's really just what came to my mind. It was gray, physically and spiritually, just very dead and boring and very very flat. It was kind of an eerie place, to be honest with you. Even the city of Victoria was very very dark and I would say just dead spiritually, just from what I could sense. So that's where we went. We actually helped them move in. It was kind of out in the woods, but then we got to travel over to Victoria. And you want to keep talking?
Yeah, and so we came to we walked through a little park, and there's like a totem pole. I think it's one of the largest totem poles. The largest totem pole. So, and so yeah, that's just a symbol of what it's like there. Just ancestor worship, dark worship, kind of there. That's also it's also the film site of a lot of these movies that we see now, like Twilight and Once Upon a Time. I don't know if y'all have heard that show. Let's see. A few. It's a very big filming spot, Vancouver is, and this island specifically was where a lot of dark movies were filmed. And so, yeah, they film it there because it's dark. It looks creepy and scary. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Okay, so kind of give you a picture. All right. Let's see. What else did we do? What's the next day? What did we do on Monday?
I wanted to talk about that night when we came back on the ferry.
Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because me and Nick, there was this guy that came over and asked me to take a picture of him because he's obviously kind of a tourist to the area, and he asked me to take a picture of him out in the bay off of the ferry, and he wanted to have the mountains in the background. So I took a few pictures, and so that kind of sparked a conversation with him that lasted the entire ferry ride, which was about, an hour and 30 minutes, something like that. We talked for a long time. And this man was kind of Buddhist. I'd say that's where his roots were. And he was very universalist too. He just felt that as long as whatever works for you, whatever, and we've already talked about that, but he felt that as Christians, he was big on this enlightenment thing. If you've reached this state of peace that comes from some sort of enlightenment, and but he said that there really is no definite God, that it's just whatever is God to you, and so that was really kind of iffy, and he really came off like he kept talking about how he had peace through this, and how it was how that he had reached enlightenment and that he had peace, but he really came off to me as someone who was actually uneasy and just kind of in a defensive mode on what he was talking about. And do you want to say anything about that conversation?
No, he was very difficult to share with, just because it would just, if you're a Christian, that's great. Keep being a Christian and you'll reach this certain enlightenment. I'm a good Hindu or a good Buddhist, and so I'll keep on this path and I'll reach enlightenment. And hey, all roads lead to the same mountaintop, right? That pluralistic mindset that is really plaguing America right now, which is quickly coming into the U.S. If you're going out to share with anybody, especially my generation and younger, that's what you're battling. It's not atheism. It's not even. It's actually more a form of agnosticism, which is, whatever you think, it's okay. We don't really know. There's no way to know truth, kind of thing. And so it's very difficult to share. But that guy, he was interesting for sure. But he had traveled around. He was married to a Russian woman, and so that's just that diversity just kind of shows you what Vancouver is like. An Indian guy married to a Russian woman, just everywhere. So why don't you talk about East Hastings Street? Later on in the week, about midway through the week, we got a chance to go to what's called downtown east side of Vancouver and on East Hastings Street. Go ahead and talk.
Well, you're in Vancouver and you're kind of driving out of Midtown, and you go just a little bit past Midtown. You can kind of tell it's starting to get towards the downtown area, a lot of older buildings and such, and everything still looked pretty nice, And so we parked in the garage. We parked in a little garage, and we start walking over there, and we hit this street, East Hastings Street, and it's just immediate. You can feel it, you can see it, you can smell it, you can, pretty much every sense sets off that this place is not good. And we had prepared peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to hand out here because this was kind of the homeless hangout, I'd say. there were just tons of people who were homeless, people who were doing drugs, people who were buying drugs. It was really just kind of a cauldron of sin down there. And that's something that I personally took out of it. I'll explain that to you. Here, you see a lot of, when somebody may fall away or something, you may see that they become apathetic or they become lukewarm. And that's something that we commonly see here. It's not as often that we see a total evil and dark presence. And that's something that I experienced on East Hastings Street in Vancouver. And I witnessed people who were obviously possessed, who were obviously just absolutely possessed by sin. And it was really a disturbing thing. And it felt completely godless. The only church that I saw was the United Church there. And I wouldn't...
Yeah, let me explain the United Church here. So basically, different denominations of Christian churches kind of came together, and they said, we're gonna have one big denomination. We're gonna call it the United Church, okay? And so, great, whatever. And so they come into this United Church, and basically, when all theologies kind of bounce together, people started saying, okay, well, we'll accept that, we'll accept that, we'll accept that. And eventually, they don't even know who they are anymore, okay? And so the United Church is a very liberal church. They, in fact, just elected a new leader, just to give you a sense of the United Church in Canada. They just elected a new leader, much like the Pope, in a sense, their head guy. And he got up in front of the press conference and said, I want to thank the committee that elected me I want to thank the committee that has elected me for never bringing up the fact that I'm openly homosexual. Okay, this is the head leader of the United Church. And so I would say just a very agnostic church coming together, worshiping whoever you want to worship is the kind of church here. And that's the only presence on East Hastings, right? And so, and just like Michael said, just a very, very dark place. I mean, people we hand out these sandwiches, and these guys will just literally be cooking heroin right there. About to shoot up right now in front of you, openly.
There's a needle store. You go buy needles, to put drugs in your body,
Yeah, clean needle store, and we were never in any kind of danger or anything like that, but
not a violent place at all. That's the crazy thing is, in America you'd figure that a place like that would be very violent, and that's something that Garrett was telling us about. That really never happens. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It's very different, but in those ways it was very dark and very just full of sin.
The police, you could tell the city of Vancouver had kind of given up and kind of trying to huddle all these people in one spot just to kind of concentrate, I guess, the drug activity in the city. And it literally it has its own zip code right here, just East Hastings, and they offer clean needles. Police are there. They know. I mean, they're there watching. They're just trying to keep the violence down. That's about it. They would never try to take drugs or anything from somebody because honestly, they'd be outnumbered. And so, so we just walked up there handing these people peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I really got. I kind of pulled the team together because we split up into two teams, and I kind of pulled my half together, and I said, guys, I just want to tell you that this is what happens when God looks at us. This is what He sees. He sees someone that is completely and utterly hopeless, who chooses sin over Him constantly. Constantly. Even as believers, we still struggle to go back to those old ways. And yet He still wants us. He still wants us, just like you just sung, Terry. Just like you just saw, He still wants us. And I think what an amazing God we worship. What an amazing God that we serve, for sure. And so that's one thing. Let's see here. Later on, I'm going to wrap it up and give you all some chances for questions here. Later on in the week, we went to, let's see here. My mind is leaving me. What did we do after East Hastings?
We went to all the little communities.
Yeah. So basically, let me explain. Towers Baptist has been chosen as kind of a training center. Okay. So basically, Towers Baptist and Richmond Chinese Church came together. They built a building, and they both meet in that church in Richmond. Okay. Towers Baptist usually about the size of 50 people, 50 or 60 people. The Chinese church closer around 200. And so, but they both share this church. And so Towers is basically a training center, or will be. That's what they're trying to work for. A training center to send out pockets of church planners in different areas around Vancouver. Ashley Austin being an example of one of those, just sending one to Victoria Island to plant a church. Steveston is another city that they're trying to plant a church in, which is a Vietnamese fishing village. What else? White Rock. We went to a place called White Rock, which is basically a beach town. Some really good surfing there, apparently. It was, do what now? Ladner's another one. So just these kind of suburbs around Vancouver, which are pretty urban in themselves. The hope is to send church planters out to those areas. And eventually them send and replicate, have church planting movements in a sense. So yeah, we basically did a lot of prayer walking around those areas, and that pretty much sums up the trip. We went to a few other places like that. We walked around Richmond and the Towers area, did a lot of praying and just a lot of just meeting people on the street corner and talking to them about Jesus. And then we concluded the trip with a banquet that the church kind of threw, is basically we're just going to have a banquet. It was Italian food, and we kind of acted as the servers and the entertainment for the night. They had like a little game show, a little date game show that we kind of emceed on that, and that was
a couples banquet.
Banquet, yeah. So they did like, they asked the questions, who gets ready fastest in the morning kind of thing, and I had some good entertainment like that, and so just a fun time to relax and in the trip in that way and fellowship. So I'm going to open it up for any questions. If you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask, go ahead and ask those now. So. Towers has multiple teams that come through. So basically, each team kind of builds upon each other team. Like the team before us, there was like 40 kids came, and so and that was more of a youth trip or whatever. And so they did stuff a little different than that, but it's constantly building off those blocks, So it's not preparation for a long term, but it's twofold. One, it's to do ministry for Towers and to pray in the city and to evangelize, and then also to introduce people on the team to possibly church planting in the future. So some of our team members have expressed they want to go back in the summer, some for a full semester, and maybe even later on actually moving to one of those areas and planting a church. So
I'd say that going forward that really is kind of the connection that's made, is we have that connection to be able to have the possibility to go back and have somewhere to stay and have a way to work it out. And so that's kind of how we can connect there and go back. So.
Ms. Pam, I saw you next. I'll get to you, Ms. Pam. Well, they come from anywhere. So basically, like Ashley Austin's example is he has a few partnerships from First Baptist Biloxi and a few other churches. Garrett is funded from our convention, the Mississippi Baptist Convention. He's partly funded with that and other partnerships. But also, this is also a North American Mission Board sending city. So NAM now has certain sending cities. I think Vancouver's number 2, New York being number 1. And so they'll eventually fund these church planters as well. So your offering for NAM will go to even church plant in those areas as well. I would say that's the first step, yeah. I would say that would be definitely the first step. So. 14 total. Two minivans full. So, Miss Peggy?
Sort of along with what she was asking, in that kind of diverse population, people groups, how does the church planters plant a church? What's the first?
That's a great question. I'll give you some info about Towers. Towers is a multi-ethnic church, and so you have people from the Ukraine, from China, from all walks of life. In '97, the first influx was Chinese from Hong Kong, so Cantonese-speaking Chinese. Then the Sikh from Punjab district in India. They came through, and now it's Mandarin-speaking Chinese that are coming in, okay? And along with, Muslims, tons and tons of different groups, just like you said. And so, my opinion would be that you would need to start a church among each people group in that area. And so, not so much area-specific, but almost people group specific within a certain area. So if you'd go to Steveston, you'd look at the kind of people groups, which is a suburb of Vancouver. You look at the kind of people groups that are represented there. You know, this Vietnamese, it's a Vietnamese fishing village, so you know Vietnamese are there. There's also Canadian-born whites are there. There's also, I would say that's the two biggest, maybe Islam, but... Well, once again, I'll give you my opinion on it. I think church plants and any kind of church growth, for that matter, comes through a small group, and so through personal interaction. That's why we here at 38th we love for you guys to meet in a small group in homes, almost, just because it's so refreshing for you, and also it gets you a chance to. It's just spiritual growth, no matter which way you look at it. And so, if I were the church planter, then I would hold a job somewhere. So, say like an English as a second language teacher, because there's an abundant need for that there. And then I would just ask my students, if you're interested to study the Bible, maybe come to this coffee shop, and then eventually pray that God will develop believers out of that, and just share the gospel with folks. Eventually, you'd have 5 or 6 members, and then you look for a leader within that group to kind of raise him up and begin discipling them as a leader while the church continues to grow. And then when it reached probably 15 to 20 members, I would send them out to begin another plant. This works a lot like the IMB's church planting movement. Ms. Pam, I'm sure you could talk about that, but basically training people to train. So teaching people to teach, disciples making disciples. And so that's how you just focus on a specific people group, I would say. So.
And one thing I noticed is that it's a lot more successful when you have a genuine care for people. When you go throughout your life, you meet people, and you just care about them. You want to hang out with them, do this with them, and through those things, presenting the gospel to them, presenting Christ to them, and then when the opportunity becomes ready to have that conversation, to have the conversation about the gospel, about you wait on that opportunity, you pray about it, and it will come, because God does that, and it's really cool. It's about relationships, and it's about staying, and it's about just letting those things come with time, and you can tell that that's happened in Vancouver with Garrett, because he's just, even as we went throughout the week, he'd walk around places and he'd just be like, hey, he'd see somebody randomly that he knew. With all the people there, he'd know somebody, and just and having a short conversation, that's something to build on, and that's something to build towards in leading them to Christ. And so that would be a big part of starting a church somewhere too, I think. So.
Anything else, Miss Tammy? The majority speak English, just because that's the language that you have to know. Like I said, ESL is a huge program there. But yeah, we've ran across a few that were, foreign-born, that, maybe new arrivals that didn't speak much English. Oh yeah, we could, especially with the people that we shared with. They spoke fine English. Yeah. I would say yeah, and this is how Garrett explains it. Okay, like in the South, it's called the 2-wall principle. Okay, so in the South, we kind of have an open first wall. We have 2 walls, front and back, right? And that front wall is easy. Like, hey, that's Southern hospitality, right? Hey, you can come in. You have a glass of tea, hey, let's go get some lunch or something like that. Real open, but it takes a lot to pry into someone's personal life, right? When you start asking personal questions, that's when our culture kind of throws the wall up. Whoa, I don't know if I could trust you. I don't know if I could share that sin with you or whatever else, I don't know if I can, blank, right? Canadians, it's the other way around. There's this huge front wall, right? I can't trust you. I don't know you. I don't know why you're talking to me. It's kind of creeping me out. But once you build that relationship and that first wall breaks down, hey, I'm completely open to whatever you want to tell me. And usually that's the difficulty. It's building relationships. So short-term trips I think the most powerful work that we did this past week was just prayer on site. And I'm a firm believer that if we pray in an area, that God will bless those things. If we pray specifically in areas, that God will bless that area. And so, yeah, but just continuing to try to build on those relationships and hopes that, yeah, they will understand eventually. So that's right. That's right. You get involved in that very easily. So don't miss that opportunity. English is a second language. That's what ESL stands for. So there's a big need for the West, specifically in the Western world, for foreign-born folks that are migrating to the West to learn English so that they can live. And so that's one thing that we're trying to offer here at the church, so that we can one way to outreach to them, so that these migrants can learn English, but also learn it through the gospel. So. No, there are not a lot of churches at all, honestly. There was a few, but the United Church is really what you see, and that's about it.
My brother married a Canadian. She said that there used to be this church. It was a mega church, but now it's a small.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So I wouldn't be surprised. So church was just like here in the U.S. I mean, church was big in the 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, there was a big church movement, the Jesus movement, and church was big even in Canada for that time. And what happened was that as the older pastor of Towers Baptist explained it to us, that they learned the Bible and they loved the Bible over Jesus. And they said they wanted to know the right answers to the questions, and they wanted to know theology, but they neglected their personal life with Jesus Christ. That's what he said the problem was. Which is interesting, because I'm learning the exact different thing. But, hey, you need to learn theology, you need to learn the Word, and he will point you to Jesus. And I'm a firm believer in that. But almost to where we study these things and never really apply them. Like, we know the right answers, but we never actually do them. So, did you have a question? Mm-hmm. No, we didn't do anything on Sunday. Every night we did have a debrief kind of prayer time, kind of, what did the Lord teach you throughout the day? And so that's kind of what we did as far as our service. We had this would probably be the only opportunity we had on that Sunday to go and help Ashley move in. And so we wanted to take advantage of that. So, but yeah, Towers is an active church. It meets every Sunday and Wednesday. So, sure, absolutely. Garrett said a number. Did he say 8? I want to say he said 8 to 10. Like 8 to 10 deep discussions of the gospel before they start giving it thought, true thought. So I'm not big on a statistic like that. I want to put my hope in the Spirit. And I mean, you want to be practical, of course, and you want to say, but I feel like a lot of times when we throw that statistic out, we're like, okay, well, I'm going to speak it to them.
You feel like you're on a schedule
yeah.
of where it should be going. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's more, like you were saying, Ms. Pam, I would say it's more in Canada than it would be here, you know. So,
I really liked Garrett's, what he was telling us about this family that lived in an apartment complex not too far from the church itself, in walking distance. And this family, he kind of had the connection because their son had played basketball with his son, and you know they're big on basketball. They just won a big tournament. They were excited about it when we got there, and so that connection kind of started. And they kind of lost it for a little bit. It was last year that they started kind of getting a connection, and then lost it. Then that kid ended up coming to the same elementary school that he coached at. That Garrett coaches youth basketball, and so he ended up coming there, trying out for the basketball team, and getting kicked off the basketball team because of, well, I don't remember what it was, but they still had that contact because he had visited and they'd seen him, and so he was able to invite them to come to church. Well, this past, I'd say about 3 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, they had a night of worship at the Towers. I was trying to say something else. They had a night of worship at Towers, and they ended up showing up to the night of worship, and it was the first time that they had come. And it was everybody in the family except the dad.
Mhm.
And the dad.
I think. 5.
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5.
Yeah, and because it was the family and then another friend that came, and all of them during that night of worship ended up accepting Christ, and just in that one night, and it was just, I mean, you could tell when he was telling that story just how powerful it was to him that had come so far, and then to see that happen, you know, he was talking about he was crying, they were crying, and I can imagine that's a pretty emotional thing. And then what we got to experience was during the couples banquet. That family came, and this time it was the dad came. And it was the first time that he had been to the church and been able to fellowship with the people there and get to know Garrett and kind of get to spend some time around there. And he seemed to really enjoy it, and that's something that I was excited about, just seeing him, and you know, and you could tell that he was, you know, he was glad to be there, and he was glad to be with his family somewhere and be able to enjoy a night with his wife while we watched the kids. So.
Yeah, I think they had been working on that family for 8 months. That's how long they had been sharing with and inviting and stuff. And just in a night of worship where probably the gospel was very vaguely presented, they accepted. So, Brother Kent. I would say most of the people were very open for us to talk to and to just. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mississippi and New Orleans, the Oreo town.
That's interesting. That's it. That's it. There you go. There you go. There's zero IMB. Zero IMB. Since Canada is part of North America, it runs through the North American Mission Board. No. And I think for more, Towers is already an established church, and I think North American Mission Board is focused on church planning right now. And so a lot of their funds go to the church planners rather than an established church. But honestly, I don't know how it works through that or whatever. But and I would say it one of the biggest barriers of that city is that it is extremely expensive to live there. I mean, when the Chinese came over, a lot of them were wealthy families, and they came over and bought their kids a house, then went back to. So you can imagine some of the craziness that brought. But they said that even gang activity and street racing and stuff like that was pretty prominent in like the 90s. And so, yeah, but it's, I mean, average house before the influx of all the migrants, probably $200,000. Now the house across the street from where the parsonage is at is selling for $850,000. So,
And there were a lot of new houses along that road, and that was an old one. It was really kind of a eyesore over there.
So church planners have to deal with that too.
Yes.
So, which is another barrier. So
Gas was
Yeah, like
it was by the liter, but it would equate to about $6 to the gallon up there. So that's about what we were paying when we filled up there. So.
yeah, that hurt for sure. So let's take any more questions, and I'm gonna sum us up here. Any more?
All right. And before you do that, I just want to take the opportunity. I know that I had to raise some money to come on this trip, and I know that there are people here. Specifically here, I raised my money to go on this trip, and I was completely funded by people here that gave money to send me on my first mission trip outside of the country. And it was definitely something that I'll take a lot from, get to know people, get to know how to share with people. Those are experiences that I personally can't put a price tag on, but I just got to thank you for the financial support that I was given by everybody in this church. That was really, really helpful to me, and I sure do appreciate that. I just want to say thank you.